Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you. No boxes, but some envelopes, and it'll all be Moses gazing on the promised land for me. It'll all be 2020 stuff, so it won't be anything I can dive into right away, but that's okay. That's all right. I'm losing my desire to dive into things as every day that passes. So, I'll be doing a lot of rereading. I love that. What have I got there? she she has no body weight, so she grabs onto something and tries to pull it down, and she can't do it. Poor thing. But anyway, let's see. Oh, great. Oh, fantastic. Okay. Yeah, there was. I requested this. There was a little mix-up, so it looked like it was a little late getting to me. This is a June book. This comes out in June. So we don't have to worry about it for a long time. This is by L. Annette Binder, and it's called The Vanishing Sky. And it's a historical novel. It is an intimate, harrowing story about a German family during World War II, inspired by the author's own father's time in the Hitler Youth. Her father passed away when she was just 16, and the two never spoke about his youth. So she imagines the novel as, quote, a letter to my father, a way to share the stories he never got to tell me. The result is a spellbinding novel about the daring choices we make for country and for family. In 1945, as the war with Germany nears its violent end, the Huber family remains in its grip. Etta, a mother from a small rural town, has two sons serving their home country. Her elder, Max, on the Eastern Front, and her younger, Georg, at school for Hitler Youth. When Max returns from the front, he is in the depths of despair, his eyes ghostly and unseeing, his cheeks sunken, and his visions tormenting. Meanwhile, miles away, her gentle younger son is raised on hatred and the inevitability of victory. Already grappling with the longing, shame, and uncertainty of adolescence, he also faces devastating violence, bodies piled like pyramids, swinging from trees like lanterns. And he ultimately takes his fate into his own hands, deserting his young class of battle-bound soldiers to embark on a perilous journey home. Not a very long thing for what it sounds like an ambitious two-pronged narrative. But I won't. This is June, so it's a long way off. Okay, but historical fiction. Now let's see what this next one is. Oh boy. Okay. All right. This is from Harvard University Press. This comes out in April. It's by Lindsay Chervinsky. Boy, this looks good. It's called The Cabinet, George Washington and the Creation of an American Institution. It's about Washington's cabinet. It should be 3 times this long. Let's see here. In the United States, members of the cabinet arguably possess more power and influence than any other government official after the president, except in 2019 when that distinction would go to the president's lawyer, the president's personal lawyer, who has no government standing at all and has never been vetted by Congress or anybody else, and who is more powerful than anybody, sets international policy for the government of the United States without ever having been in front of an electorate for that job. But once upon a time, yes, the cabinet members didn't have to kowtow to the president's personal attorney in between his stints incriminating himself by confessing to crimes on national television. Each president crafts their own relationships with their cabinet, for better or worse. There are no rules or written guidelines for presidents to follow, and these interactions are hidden from Congress's prying eyes and the public's examination. This dynamic has become an accepted part of American political tradition, largely because the cabinet was George Washington's creation. Wow, I never quite thought of it that way. There aren't any rules for how a president deals with with his cabinet, and no transparency, except what the administration, the president, the various cabinet members choose to do. Interesting. Why is this so short? I want it to be longer already. I want it to be longer. So let's see here. This book Lindsay Chervinsky is a White House historian at the White House Historical Association. For Pete's sake, you're exactly the kind of person I want to hear about this for 700 pages. Did you know what you're talking about? The author examines the story of the cabinet's development in the context of the emerging federal government and the new republic. She unveils a new version of state building in the early republic, one that is organic and reactive to the anxieties about the future of the new nation in the 1780s and 1790s. So here we have, on November 26, 1791, George Washington convened his department secretaries. 1791, convened his department secretaries, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, Henry Knox, yay, and Edmund Randolph for the first cabinet meeting. And since then, wow, okay, great. Okay, who is, I guess we learned everything we need to know about Lindsay Chervinsky, the White House historian of the White House Historical Association. I guess that's all we need to know. Is there anything more? Before that, she was a postdoctoral fellow at the Center for Presidential History in Southern Methodist University. So this looks like it's her first book. Okay, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. You don't often hear me enthuse about a new Washington book, but this is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. That comes out in April. Great. Okay. All right, so history and fiction. Let's move on to the next one here. There's not going to be any 2020 stuff for Steve. Okay, this is January 7th, the same time as everything else comes out. This is coming out as a paperback, so that's good. It comes out as a $16 paperback in January 7th, so if it sounds interesting to you, there's no reason for you to request it at your library or wait a year or more until it comes out in a paperback. You can just buy it. This is the Martin Chronicles by John Fried, or Freed. I'm going to say Fried because it's one of the English language's best words. This is a powerful and heartfelt story that follows one boy as he grows up in 1980s Manhattan, bringing the magic of first experiences and the brutal truth of hard lessons to life on the page. In 6th grade, 11-year-old Martin Kelso's world starts to change. Girls get under his skin in a way they hadn't before. Even his cousin Evie, who taught him the right way to eat pizza and how to catch tadpoles, has grown wild, unpredictable, and mysterious. Mugger was once just a game played by Marty and his friends as they tried to make sense of the bustling metropolis around them, but now real muggers are targeting their classmates on their way to school, bringing a sense of danger to their otherwise idyllic days. Marty used to feel secure in himself, but as he grows up and life changes too quickly around him, it becomes increasingly difficult for him to choose right over wrong, or even to tell the difference between the two. Okay, that sounds great. That sounds fantastic. So who is the author when he's at home? John Fried Fish. John Fried Fish teaches creative writing at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. He's from Pittsburgh. He received his MSA from Warren Wilson's college's program for writers. His short stories appeared in numerous venues. Prior to teaching, he was a magazine writer and editor in New York, and his work has appeared in various publications, including Rolling Stone, New York Times Magazine, and Real Simple. Great. Fantastic. Okay, so the Martin Chronicles makes me wonder, just in pure bookish trivia, in the pure sense of pure bookish trivia, how many other books you can think of whose title derives from the title of another book? This obviously derived from Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles, but how many other instances can we come up with where the title of a book is a play on words or derives in some way from the title of another book? I'm trying to think of some that aren't direct sequels. But anyway, let's move on to the cardboard. There's a few cardboard things to do here. Okay. Next one is a work of nonfiction. It comes out, oh no, this is a December 31st book. Oh no, well then I guess I could dive right into this. I don't think I will, but I could. But I am thinking about designating a week where I do stragglers like this in the first week of January, for reviews, I mean. so that they don't fall completely into the Marianas Trench, you know. So this one is translated from the French. This is Self-Confidence, a Philosophy by Charles Pepin. It's translated by Willard Wood. Requisite hideous American cover. What is the source of self-confidence? Are some people born with it? Do we gain it through other people, or do we create it for ourselves? How might we draw closer to those who stand out and accomplish admirable things entirely thanks to their confidence in themselves? An erudite and accessible philosophical inquiry into these crucial questions, this book provides nuanced, refreshing insights into the strange alchemy that is self-confidence and offers practical advice on how to develop it. With a philosopher's talent for definition. A philosopher's talent for definition. Okay, great. All right. Okay. All right. So, with a junkie's talent for self-control, Pepin distinguishes between self-esteem, which springs from an assessment of our own value, and self-confidence, which guides our actions, supporting our ability to venture forth despite our doubts, to take risks in a complex world. Okay, I think the author's philosopher's talent for definition is deserting him right away, since I think anyone would admit that self-esteem and self-confidence are the same thing. What would be the purpose of differentiating from shaving off two sides of the same coin like that? But maybe the author has a plan in mind. His philosophy of self-confidence is thus a philosophy as grounded in action, in real-life examples and thought-provoking suggestions, as it is in ideas. Okay. All right, well, this has blurbs all over it. The author is a philosopher and novelist. In that order, I'm guessing. And he's written all over and published in 30 countries. And he is the organizer of the Lundus Philo lecture series at MK2 Odeon in Paris. And his translator lives in Norfolk, Connecticut. Okay. All right. Well, December 31st. So I'm not, even though it's a 2019 release, it's a little late for me, but I will get to it in the new year, and we'll see if the distinction between self-esteem and self-confidence is worth making. Let's see what this next one is. Do you want this? What are you doing? What is that? What is that? No, baby girl. No. Oh, God. Floor surrounded in cardboard, and she's eating a bookmark. Baby, what is the matter with you? Where did you even get this? Well, it doesn't look like she ate any of it. That's good. Because that's getting to be a little bit annoying, her tendency to eat things. It blossomed late. She didn't have it for the first 2 years of her life. Now I'm all of a sudden having to think about it. But anyway, let's see what we have here next. Okay, so another paperback original. That's great. I'm all for paperback originals. This comes out in mid-January. This is a debut novel. It's a debut psychological thriller from Annie Katz called A Good Man. It's a debut psychological thriller. Will have readers riveted right up until its shocking conclusion. In it, the author puts a dysfunctional family dynamic, the fragile male ego, and an unreliable male narrator front and center. Thomas Martin is a devoted family man with an enviable life, a beautiful wife and a daughter, a well-appointed home on Long Island's North Shore, and a job at a prestigious Manhattan advertising firm. He is also a devoted son and brother, shielding the women in his life from the everyday horrors of the world. We've seen this already. I don't think I remembered that it was going to be an original paperback, but we've seen this already. I remember fulminating about this. But what happens when Thomas's fragile ego is rocked? After grappling with his sense of self and his place in the family, Thomas's world unravels, and ultimately he commits unspeakable acts. Okay, well, so this comes out in mid-January. I'm currently looking at any models for long-term weather forecasting for mid-January. Of course, it's an arcane crapshoot this far out, but nevertheless, I'm trying to see if there's any way that I can determine how bad a winter it's going to be. January and February will be the months of winter, and that won't affect my reading, I would hope. So let's do this last one. It's in one of these bomb blast envelopes that are adhesive on the inside, so that you literally have to tear the thing into an explosion. You have to tear it apart like a wild animal went at it in order to get the contents out of it, and then you have to keep tearing because the packaging that you leave behind is adhesive. It'll stick to everything. So you need to make confetti out of it. And I know that the mind frame behind this, somewhere, the mind frame behind this is, well, if we make it really difficult, then it will get the attention of the person who's opening it. It won't just be an automatic thing. And that's a line of reasoning. I know that's the reasoning that explains why these things exist at all, instead of in a manila envelope that doesn't require someone to do that. But it's a bad set of reasoning because what it does, yes, you do have to pay attention to it and you hate it. And that's not what you want. You don't want that. You don't want someone opening a book package in hatred. Let's see here. Oh, all right. Okay, this is another thriller. This is the lovely Finnish copy. Boy, that's very nice. Raymond Fleischman. Raymond Fleischman is the name of the author. How Quickly She Disappears. And this is also a debut. Wow, another debut psychological thriller. That's fascinating. Boy, that ends up looking really nice. That is not the requisite boring or hideous American cover at all. So this comes out in mid-January. An intricately plotted literary thriller set in the 1940s Alaskan bush. This novel is a gripping meditation on madness, obsession, loneliness, and grief, centered around an isolated young mother and the enigmatic stranger who has taken up a deep and disturbing interest in her and in her missing sister. The year is 1941, and Elizabeth Fotz is living temporarily in Tanacross, Alaska, the remoteness of the region and her loveless marriage buoyed only by the presence of her precocious younger daughter. In Margaret, Elizabeth feels the invisible presence of her twin sister Jacqueline, who disappeared without a trace when she and Elizabeth were just 11 years old. Then a German bush pilot lands unexpectedly on Tanacross's tiny gravel airstrip. After befriending Elizabeth, he commits an inexplicable act of violence, followed by a startling revelation. He knows exactly what happened to Elizabeth's sister, and will reveal the truth only if Elizabeth fulfills 3 requests. The author's grandparents lived in Tanacross between 1938 and 1941, having moved there to teach with the Office of Indian Affairs. Raised as a boy on stories of the Alaskan wilderness, Fleischman captures the isolation and mystery of the state with texture and nuance. From an unforgettable scene in a meat cache, the smell of cured meat, light slipping between the slats, the dangerous man tied to the chair, to the portrayal of an Athabascan potlatch and other native traditions, How Quickly She Disappears captures a time and place unlike any other. Certainly sounds it, doesn't it? Doesn't sound like a normal thriller at all. Okay, well, what do we know about Raymond Fleischman? What do we know about him? Not to be confused with another Fleischman who goes to remote Alaska. Probably one, maybe 2 out of all of you will recognize that reference to a certain great show, a certain great TV show that starred a young man named Fleischman who goes to Alaska. But what do we know about Raymond Fleischman, not to be confused with Joel? He received his MFA from Ohio State University, and he's earned scholarships and fellowships from Richard Hugo House, the Sewanee Writers Conference, and others. He lives in Indiana with his wife and 3 daughters, and this is his first novel. Fantastic. Incredible. Okay, well, this comes out, what did I mention? It comes out in mid-January, so if that sounds interesting to you, and it certainly sounds interesting to me, then start setting your pennies aside, or, get on the line to your library and see that they look into this and maybe get a copy. Fantastic. Okay, so we have wait a minute, is it I'm just trying to figure out now if this, is it possible that this is, that every piece of fiction that we got today was a debut? No, okay. The Vanishing Sky by L. Annette Binder is her second book. But the other two, How Quickly She Disappears, is a debut work. A Good Man is a debut work. And the Martin Chronicles is a debut work. So that's great. That's fantastic for somebody who likes debut fiction as much as I do. Then Self-Confidence, a Philosophy, coming out on the last day of the year. And The Cabinet by Lindsay Chervinsky, the one piece of history in this mail haul, and not just a piece of history, but something that I really want to read. I want there to be more of it. Maybe I won't. Maybe the author does such a good job that I won't feel shortchanged. But I would want a book, a section almost this long on each of those cabinet members. Excuse me. And there's bound to be just piles and piles of, this author would know better than anybody, there's bound to be piles and piles of information, of first-hand documents about what they did during their time as the first cabinet, the first presidential cabinet in American history. One way or another, I've never read a book on this subject, so can't wait. So that is the mail for today. No boxes, and I had to stop midway to pry something out of my schnauzer's mouth. But lots of interesting stuff, lots of debut fiction too. So I'm gonna wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.